What's happening, y'all? Welcome inside the Fantasy Stock Exchange. Danny and Bush coming at you with episode 31 of Dynasty Decisions. As you guys know, this is where we take your questions, your teams, talk about the decisions that you're faced with in Dynasty Fantasy Football, whether it's trades, rookie picks, what direction should you go with your teams. This is our favorite episode to record that we do on this channel, as you guys know. If you enjoyed this video, like the video, comment any of your thoughts down below, subscribe to the channel if you are new. If you want to be a part of future Dynasty Decisions episodes, you can do so by first becoming a Patreon. They get first priority on every Dynasty Decisions episode that we do. But if you don't want to become a Patreon, you still want to be a part of the show, you can reach out to us on Twitter and on Discord, and we'll get you on as soon as possible. So without further ado, Danny, how you doing?
Doing well. And yeah, I'm ready to roll the two-parter of this week, second part of it. And yeah, as you guys know, we love doing Dynasty Decisions. We love taking on your guys' questions, and I am fired up. But before we get into the first team, as always, let's hit that damn intro. All right, so let's start off with the first team, and Corey, I'll let you take it away here.
Yeah, so we don't actually have a team to start off. We have Dean, who is a Patreon. He asks a question. Again, it's always good when we get questions that we can mix into this too, because we do enjoy talking about just macro game theory stuff of Dynasty. And this is a concept that, first became kind of known to us last year that we've really adopted in our own part of our analysis because the numbers don't lie. And basically what Dean's asking is year 2 and year 3 wide receivers that have disappointed, right? Hereby known as face planners, made famous by @DFBeanCounter on Twitter. He was asking year 2 guys, Rondale Moore, Terrace Marshall, Anthony Schwartz, Dwayne Eskridge, guys that just, they didn't do a whole lot. Maybe the expectations were kind of varying for Rondale Moore and Terrace Marshall. We had high expectations. Schwartz, Eskridge, guys didn't have that high of expectations, but still did not perform at the level that we wanted to see them perform at. And he also says you can throw in Tony, Amari Rodgers too, as their rookie years don't project well into their future, regardless of injuries and all that stuff. Do we make excuses for these guys? Basically, is what he's asking, or should we, be selling them? Is the hit rates of these players, not worth the headache, not worth the investment? And while they're still young, should we still try and strike while the iron's hot?
So again, you guys can basically know our stance on this through recent videos, but for us, I mean, it's pretty simple. If you are in this face planter criteria, if you meet this section of players that have fallen in value from the rookie years, they are not generally a good bet to make. So you mentioned some of these names like Dwayne Eskridge, Terrace Marshall, Rondale Moore, Anthony Schwartz, you name it. I'm just not looking to acquire them. And I know that there's going to be a section of people that will always believe in the talent, the intangible, yada, yada, yada. At the end of the day here, I'm just going to trust the data. I'm going to trust the fact that for the most part, buying them after bad rookie years is a bad bet.
Right. And does Demaryius Thomas exist? Right. Demaryius Thomas was a face planner. Does he exist? For sure. But Demaryius Thomas, as you guys will see on the screen, is one of only 13 out of 125 players who have lost 12 or more spots in Dynasty ADP to ever hit a top 24 season. Now, of course, Demaryius Thomas was wildly productive for the rest of his career. He's really the only guy that ever became like a top end Dynasty wide receiver after face planning his rookie season. And he also dealt with like injuries and stuff too. So that could be part of it. But when you're looking at face planners, again, this is not necessarily a term that means like they didn't perform. What it means is that in the eyes of Dynasty players like us and like you guys listening, we lost, hope in these players. And usually when that happens, it's been really predictive and really accurate. And ADP is basically a measure of the market. So if we're down on the players, usually it's for a good reason. And typically those players don't come back, year 2, year 3. And we have recent examples like Devontae Parker and Corey Davis that have been able to be productive later in the duration of their rookie contracts, but they've been kind of a blip on the radar. They haven't been consistently productive over the course of a couple years after that either.
Yeah, and I kind of wanted to add to this too. The main reason why face planners are such a bad bet is that we have like literal data in the NFL as to them being unproductive. But the problem is we think that this is such a discount because subconsciously we have the inherent bias that the sunk cost that we put into them still exists, that they can still become the same player that the cost that we put into them would indicate. So a lot of people were like, I spent, the 106 in my draft on Jerry Jeudy. Like he's still worth like that, like a high pick in my opinion, because that's what I put into him. When at the same time, we have 2 years of data that would indicate otherwise.
Right. And some of these players we were high on, right? I was really high on Jerry Jeudy coming
Yeah.
into this year. Chase Claypool, the same thing. When you lose ADP and your value, tanks in the eyes of dynasty players, we're getting very smart at determining what players are good investments going forward and what players are not. And he also asked about the year 3 guys. Is there any hope for Jalen Reagor, Laviska Shenault, Denzel Mims? I would say even more so, these guys are not worth your
Yeah.
time. Again, if you can use them, the best place to use face planners in trades, in my opinion, as throw-in. So if you want to go from, the 109 to the 107 in your rookie draft because you see a tier break or something, throw in 2 of these face planners, right? Throw in Rondell Moore and, Jalen Reagor as throw-ins to move up the draft board, because the reality is their hit rates are very unlikely to, come to fruition anyway. And you can use them as, somewhat appealing just because of their age and the fact that they could, be the next Devontae Parker in the eyes of the person acquiring them.
Yeah, let other people in your league deal with sunk cost bias. Let other people in your league think, well, this guy invested the 105 in him last year. If I'm getting him for the 108 right now, the 109 right now, I'm getting a discount. No, the reason why someone invested that 105 last year is because they had the hopes of them being a 105 or better player, and year 1 of data would indicate otherwise. So being able to take advantage of these market inefficiencies, particularly in your league, particularly affecting these dynamics, is ultimately how you get ahead of the curve. And until people fully realize the data supporting face planners in terms of avoiding them, you can keep manipulating and taking advantage of this.
Right. So go ahead, shop those face planners around, see if you can get early 3rd round draft capital for some of these guys. Maybe you can only, salvage a mid 3rd round pick for some of them, maybe another piece on top of it or whatever. See what you can get, because there is going to be people that make the excuse, oh, well, Terrace Marshall wasn't used correctly, or, he was dealing with injuries or whatever the case is. Usually the reason that he didn't perform is because he isn't good. That's typically the one constant with all these face planners, that they aren't good enough to perform, to command targets, to put up fantasy points, and that's why they face planted. So let's move on to Tim's question and his trade. This is a follow-up from the last video that we did, which would have came out yesterday. Basically, he had a number of trade opportunities. One was like James Conner for the 201, but this is the trade that he ended up going through with. He ended up actually making this trade. And what he ended up doing was he traded away the 101 and the 107 this season. So, obviously some pretty high draft capital. And in return, he received the 105. So gets an upgrade on that 107 pick. Also gets Brandon Ayuk, Josh Palmer, KJ Osborne, and Terrace Marshall on top of it. Now, Brandon Ayuk is a guy among the players that are in this trade, are definitely the guy that we would be highest on. But I do think Josh Palmer and KJ Osborne are decent shots to take. Not necessarily guys that I'm, sold as,
3rd
top
round
10
type of
dynasty wide
players.
receivers at any point in their career. But I do think they're good, bets to, throw at a dartboard.
Yeah, like if I were to equate Brandon Ayuk's value, I'd probably have him around the 105, 106 area, give or take. So if you want to put him there, I'd probably prefer straight up, if I had the choice, London, Burks, Wilson. But I mean, if you want to put him in that tier, 105, 106, be my guess. So basically here you're downgrading from the 101 to Ayuk, which I would view as the 105, but also upgrading from the 107 to the 105, and then getting a couple ancillary pieces. So I think this is kind of, a fair across even deal. If I had to choose personally, I'd probably rather the 101 and the 107,
It
but
really all
I
depends who
understand
you
the
get at
context here.
105, right? Because if the 101, it's a 1 quarterback league, so there's no quarterbacks included in the the top 5 picks presumably. So
Yeah.
if both Spiller and Hall go before the 105, then you're probably going to get one of Wilson, London, or Burks. Probably not Burks, but Wilson or London potentially at 105. So if you come out of this trade with Drake London as the 105, and the 101 was Burks and the 107 was, Jameson Williams or something, I definitely like this trade a lot more. It really all depends who you get at 105.
Yep, for sure. And again, with your roster right now, I don't mind it too, because you add a couple upside pieces, if you will.
And you get younger too a little
Yeah.
bit, because your wide receiver core as it stands right now is in their prime, or like, towards the tail end of their prime. So the fact that you can get Palmer and Osborne, who in the future might have some upside, I don't mind that move at all. Same goes for Ayuk. I think his prime years are probably ahead of him as well. So I don't mind the move. I think it was a pretty fair trade overall. I don't think you kicked his ass in this trade, but I don't mind the move for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, again, I agree. This is pretty fair in general, but either way, any other input you have here? Should we move on to the next team or deal?
Yeah. We can move on to the next question here. We got Ernest, who's also a Patreon here. He basically just wants to know about Michael Carter. What do we think of Michael Carter? Is he ready to take the next step, or is he destined for mediocrity? Should he be, a guy that's sold high right now? Well, because the problem with Michael Carter, and the thing that we talked about last year, is even if Michael Carter hits, which I believe he did, I think he's, a talented running back. I had a late second round grade or a mid second round grade on Michael Carter coming out. I thought he was a much better prospect than the 4th round draft capital that he saw. But the problem with 4th round draft capital and day 3 draft capital is it doesn't guarantee you job security. And we already know that this San Francisco tree that Robert Saleh and Mike LaFleur came from would probably like to deploy a similar type of running back by committee that Kyle Shanahan deploys. So if the Jets are staring at, whatever running back they covet highly in the draft in the late 1st round, early 2nd round, their other I think they have 2 2nd round picks. I don't even really know what their draft capital is. I just know they have a lot of it and a lot of high draft capital. Would they be willing to add a significant investment to their running back core? Or hell, maybe they want to sign Melvin Gordon or Ronald Jones or somebody that will, contribute to a pretty high degree to fill the role that they probably had in mind for Tevin Coleman, but Tevin Coleman stinks, so he couldn't fill that role. So that's kind of like Michael Carter is a hard investment right now. If he can get through this draft process and this free agency process, scot-free with minimal investment in that position group by the New York Jets, then I think he's destined to be a top 24 dynasty running back. But there's a lot of risk and a lot of things could happen from now until, the end of May or whatever.
Yeah, and this ties into, again, you guys will see a future episode sometime in March. Me and Ron are going to plan it, but the value or the importance of investing in players that have a lot of insulated value, a lot of value that can't really be affected by external circumstances. And Michael Carter would be the prime example of investing in a player whose value is not insulated, whose value is completely indicative based off external factors, which we can't predict. In fantasy football and dynasty and predicting the market as a whole, we want to make sure that we can eliminate as much variance as possible, much negative variance as possible. And with Michael Carter, there's just simply so much negative variance that can affect his stock that he's not a player that I want to invest in, especially at this given point with what we know, with how little we know about this offseason. He's not a player I want to be holding. His current market value on Keep Trade Cut is as, let me just check, the RB25, and he's equated to the 110 in Superflex rookie drafts. If somebody were to offer me the 110 right now in a league I had Michael Carter, I'd be taking that in a heartbeat because I know the 110 is completely independent of external variance. Whereas, as I mentioned with Michael Carter, he's completely predicated on it. So Michael Carter's an interesting case study. Yes, he was very effective in his rookie year, but as you mentioned, all the risk there is in the draft capital, is in the fact that is he ever going to be a 3-4 year, 20 touch per game, 23 opportunity per game back? If he's not, which I don't think he is, I would rather move on and take another dart throw that can ultimately present that opportunity to me.
It's really all about range of outcomes for Michael Carter, right? Because if nothing happens, they don't add any running backs. Maybe they add like a lowly veteran, like a Devontae Booker or something like that. How high does Michael Carter's value go? 108, 109? Like not much higher than it currently stands right now. But if they do add somebody, how low does it go, right? It could go down to, the 205, 206, 207 type of range. And at that point, you've just lost a lot of value on your investment of Michael Carter if you traded a 1st round pick for him, or if you, held him, then you hit on that draft pick last year, but you wanted to potentially sell him. I think this is the time to be shopping Michael Carter to see what people think of him. And I really like Michael Carter as a talent, but like Danny said, the insulated value is a concern. And the fact that we need to know what the New York Jets are going to do in order to properly evaluate Michael Carter going forward is something that I don't want to have to do for players. I'd like to know based on their own merit and based on their own insulated value what they're actually worth. So let's move on to the final Patreon question, and then we'll get into the other questions that we have here, which is from AJ, another member of the Tone Setter tier. Appreciate the support for all of our Patreons. I'll let you take it away with his team here.
For sure. And you guys can see, I mean, he's got what looks to be, a very win now type of team, obviously, with Josh Allen, Dalvin Cook, Saquon Barkley, Stephon Diggs. So, I mean, this is a very good team that looks to be a contender. However, though, even if you're in this situation, even if you know you're going to be a contender, if you can get the type of value for a contending piece like Nick Chubb, the way AJ did, I'm telling you guys, go do it, because the fact that he was able to trade Nick Chubb and turn that into Mike Williams in the 101 is fantastic. And again, you guys are going to know us as the Nick Chubb haters. Like, I really don't care, because at the end of the day here, I mean, this is going to be going into the next year, a soon to be 28-year-old 2-down back. If you think you're going to get the 101 for him after the season, you are heavily mistaken. So this is really good, frugal thinking by AJ, and being able to cash out on this asset, get a nice young, either if you want to spend it on, Isaiah Spiller, Breece Hall, or obviously, as we would, one of these top wide receivers. You have so much more value with that 101 than Nick Chubb represents. So I just wanted to completely say that first. Great job on that deal. Fantastic deal. The thing that he actually is asking, though, is what else should he do? And he wants to contend this year. What are your initial thoughts on that question, and looking at his team, how he can combat that?
Well, again, the most important thing I think about these Dynasty Decisions episodes for you guys listening to us, critiquing your teams and how to go forward with them, is to know your league. And knowing that AJ's league behaves that way, that Nick Chubb is worth that package, I am shopping Dalvin Cook as fast as I can, because Nick Chubb is a redraft asset. Let's just call him that. That's, most of the people would prefer him in redraft than they would in Dynasty. So Dalvin Cook kind of fits the same description. He's a guy that a lot of redraft players are going to value higher than, the diehard Dynasty players. So if you can sell Dalvin Cook, maybe you don't want to go after draft picks. Maybe you just want to go after a younger running back. You want to sell Dalvin Cook for J.K. Dobbins or Antonio Gibson or Travis Etienne plus, or whatever the case is. I do think, given the state of, the trade you were able to get for Nick Chubb, you could probably get a pretty good package for a young running back like that. And even if you don't want to make that trade, just see if you can get like the 103 straight up for Dalvin Cook. And maybe you can get even more than that the way you did with Chubb, and you can just, replace Dalvin Cook with Isaiah Spiller, Breece Hall, whatever the case is. Now, he does say he wants to contend this year, but if a value opportunity presents itself the way that the Nick Chubb value opportunity presented itself, that you can increase your longevity and still stay competitive with a Gibson, a Dobbins, somebody like that, I'm absolutely taking that opportunity.
Given what I just saw you get for Nick Chubb, I wouldn't be at all shocked if you could get Gibson in a 2023 first for Dalvin Cook, because that what that first deal signifies to me is, again, Corey mentioned it, people are all in on redraft type of pieces. So if you can flip Dalvin Cook into Gibson plus a first, or freaking Dobbins plus a first, people are worried about him coming off the ACL, go do it. Because again, there's so much value that can be made, and ultimately you're moving off a super unstable future asset into one that is younger and more stable, while also getting additional pieces attached. So I fully agree with you. I would be shopping Dalvin Cook. The other pieces on your team, I'm more than fine keeping. Like Stephon Diggs, Calvin Ridley, Devontae Smith, they're going to help you win. So you keep all those wide receivers, and obviously George Kittle intact. And I mean, Josh Allen has got a case to be quarterback one, so you keep him. But yeah, overall, this is a very, very well-constructed team. The one thing we would say is got Dalvin Cook. Put him up.
Yeah, and it's don't force it. Obviously, if nobody's giving you the value, maybe Nick Chubb has more value because he's been less like injured or whatever, because some people will hold that against Dalvin Cook. By all means, keep Dalvin Cook and try and win again, or try and contend this year, because you are in a contending window. It's just, if you're presented with the opportunity that you can both stay competitive with an Antonio Gibson and increase your longevity, that is definitely the route that we would go towards. So let's move on to BranCarmichael's team. Appreciate all of you Patreons. And again, if you want your question featured, you will be the first, teams that we talk about, first questions we talk about. Patreon.com/fantasy stock exchange is how you do that. BranCarmichael, 12 teams, super flex, tight end premium. You guys can see, and Danny just puts the ticker up right now. You guys can see the team on the screen. Watson, Lance, Swift, Gibson, Javonte, AJ Brown. Like, this team's looking pretty good so far. Mark Andrews in a tight end premium. Basically, he said there's a super team in progress in his league. I mean, it's not him apparently, but the team that is in his league that is projected to be a super team going forward. He's got, Kyler Murray, Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, DJ Moore, Deontay Johnson, George Kittle, Jerry Jeudy already. And he has the 101 through the 107 this year. So he has the first 7 picks of this year's draft. He has 7 firsts in 2023, and he has 6 firsts in 2024. So what he's wondering basically is, should I try and win before this guy takes over the league? Because I would say for sure, come the 2023 draft, when he can add his Bijan Robinsons and, Jahmyr Gibbs to his roster, that's when he's going to become a really big problem for you and for the rest of your league mates. But I think you're set up well, not only now, but in the future, to be able to stay competitive with that team, assuming he misses on some of his draft picks and things like that. So I would potentially, like, he basically asked the 109, 110, 111, 201 picks that I have, how valuable are those this year to help me compete? Because at the 109, 110, 111, you're not going to get Drake London. You're not going to get Garrett Wilson. You're not going to get Treylon Burks. you might get, Jameson Williams, David Bell type of wide receiver talent. Is that worth picking there, or should I trade those guys for veteran wide receivers?
I think you have two choices with this team. You either completely strip it down and put your winning window after this guy, or you go all out to try to win before this guy brings your league. Because genuinely speaking, I mean, let's be realistic. Let's contextualize this real life right now. Everybody that's watching, a team of Kyler, Lawrence, Wilson, DJ Moore, all those other pieces and all those picks is probably going to be near dominant between, let's say, 2024 and 2027 in particular. You have to choose right now. Do you want to go all out in 2022 and 2023? Or do you want to keep selling your assets right now, accumulating future assets, pushing them back to the point where you could maybe be in the situation for 2028 to 30? Again, like that all comes down to what type of league you're in. Because if you're in a league with randoms, you're not going to do that clearly. But if you're in a league with guys, from the office, and this is going to be long-standing, maybe you make that description. But judging from the way you kind of worded this, I'm assuming you want to compete now. And if that's the case, if you could shop the 201 right now for Keenan Allen, I would look to do something like that. Again,
Keenan Allen's the perfect piece for this team. And same goes for like Mike Evans. Like those type of players are the perfect pieces for this team. Yeah. If you can trade, and if you want to go after a superstar too, you could see like the 109 and the 110 for Devontae Adams or something like that. And see if you can add that to this team, because I think your running backs are definitely good enough to compete right now. Your wide receivers, you probably just need, if you added Adams and Mike Evans to this team, or Keenan Allen and Mike Evans to this team, I think you're ready and you're probably the favorite in your league to compete. Even if Watson doesn't play this year, you should be okay. And obviously that obviously does hinge on Watson's status because it is a super flex league. But I still like your chances, even if that is the case.
For sure. And again, like if I was in your position, I would prefer the first option of trying to win, because you do have the pieces to be able to win. But again, if you were, not as strong as you were and you had a few really, really good assets, I'd probably look to the B. But because again, like the only real framework of your team that you need would be wide receiver depth, because
and
the
a quarterback 3 probably, which you can use one of, like, don't sell all of your picks, because you probably should draft, Corral, Howell, or Pickett with either the 109, 110, or 111, depending on where they go, because you probably do need some Watson insurance, and a rookie quarterback's a cheap way to get that. So that's probably what I would do. I would shop, 2 of those picks, see if you can go after, the 111 for Keenan Allen or something like that, the 201 for, Mike Evans with all the quarterback, uncertainty in that situation. Maybe you can get it done for something like that. That's what I would do personally.
For sure. Yeah, no, I agree. Like using those picks, like realistically, the main thing I'm looking for, as you mentioned, is a quarterback 3 and adding to that wide receiver room. Cause I mean, your RBs are set. Like even if you didn't have one of those top 3, having Hunt as a 4 as well is really phenomenal. Obviously, again, like we're a little bit wary of the value of Penny, but we do agree that from a projection standpoint, he should be at minimum a good RB5 for you. So either way, I mean, you're in a good position. You have to make the choice, though. Do you want to get ahead of the super team, or you want to go behind it? And that's ultimately going to come down to your league dynamic and what you personally feel like would be the best route.
Yep. And I think given the state of your team, it's probably smart to get ahead of it, because I'm sure the guy's going to miss on some of his picks too, right? So you're going to have to figure that, 2023 is the first season he's really going to be competitive. And if you're, still in really good shape by 2023, which I think you will be given the state of your team, then you could, go back to back before he even wins anything. So
correct.
Glaban's team, we'll get into the next one that we have here. You guys can see the team on the screen right now. He actually messaged me the next day after he sent this and asked about a recent trade that he had on the table. So I'm not going to go over his team, but you guys can see he has, Justin Herbert, no running backs to speak of, Justin Jefferson, Godwin, Hollywood, Darren Waller. He's kind of in flux right now, is basically how he kind of described his team. He's trying to tear it down, trying to rebuild for the future. He has the 106 and the 111 this year. He has 2 firsts in 2023. He made a number of moves that kind of signify that he's going towards a rebuilding type of move. He traded away Tyler Lockett and Darrell Henderson in the 206 in exchange for Hollywood Brown and Amari Rodgers. What do you think of that first trade?
Yeah, I mean, basically the way I would equate this deal would be Hollywood's the best asset in my opinion here. So if you want to do, Lockett in the 206 for Hollywood, I think that would probably be relatively fair. Obviously, Lockett, a good contending wide receiver, but also an aging one. So I would probably equate that to similar value. And then again, if you want to flip Amari Rodgers for Darrell Henderson, obviously Darrell Henderson, we both think long-term wise is probably going to be limited in value. And who knows? I mean, We don't
I
like
still would
betting on
rather
face
have Darrell
planters.
Henderson than Amari Rodgers, but I mean,
Yeah.
I wish you got a pick on top of this. Like if you got a third rounder on top
Third.
of this, would
Yeah.
probably be a bit better. But I still think you won this trade because you're looking for, you know, young cornerstone
Yeah.
assets, and you got Hollywood Brown in this
And
deal. So I'll take
and
that.
that perfectly blends into what we've been saying, is that from a black and white perspective, people might look in this deal and be like, oh, like you probably overpaid for this. But from a gray perspective, from a contextual perspective, given the aim that you're trying to accomplish with this team, it's a good deal for you.
Yep. Same goes for the next deal, right? You sell
Yes.
Ezekiel Elliott and the 406. Ezekiel Elliott, I mean, Danny's a Cowboys fan. He's made
Yeah.
his thoughts known on Ezekiel Elliott. I've made my thoughts known on Ezekiel Elliott just a year earlier than Danny. Sell this dude. Like if he's still worth a lot in your leagues, if you play in a redraft style dynasty league where a lot of players don't understand the value of running backs that have, you know, 1,500 plus career touches under their belt, you got to sell Ezekiel Elliott. And Chris Godwin's a great guy to buy low. Probably not a guy that you want to hold on to long term, given the state of your team, but his value is at a low point. And once he gets back on the field, you could sell him at that point and, you know, maybe get 2023 first for him or something like that. So I really like that move. I think you basically took a sell, like a sell candidate, got a buy candidate out of it, and, you know, you gave up like nothing in terms of draft capital with them.
For sure. And again, we'll just group these next two deals together because I love your side on both of these. We just talked about Michael Carter, and I just said how I would be willing to sell him for the 2022 110 in a heartbeat. You got a 2023 first for this.
Even if that's the 112 in 2023, I like this deal. But that, I mean, we'll just say it's mid to late. We don't really know where it's going to be. But either way, any kind of 2023 first for Michael Carter is a smash deal for me.
Phenomenal deal. And I fully like this next deal. Again, like we both think that Odell Beckham, when he is healthy, is a really, really good receiver. And the fact that you're able to get him straight up for Zach Ertz, an old,
I'm assuming this happened after he tore his ACL in the Super Bowl, and somebody's just going to think he's retiring or something like that.
Even if he was, who cares?
I think he did a great job.
Even if Odell was planning to retire, I mean, Zach Ertz is not going to put my dynasty team in a hole.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a guy that you got rid of too, right? With Zach Ertz, and maybe OBJ you can sell for a future second round pick at a later date once he's back on the field. Let's say if he re-signs with the Rams, I think you could sell him for a second round pick, even if we don't know his health status.
For sure. So the main question here, and you updated, as you said, he ended up saying that he received an offer for Darren Waller and Baker off of his team, and he would be getting a 2023 first. For me personally, I would equate Baker to like the 112, 201 type of range in terms of value. He's still starting quarterback.
Really, you still have Baker that high?
I'd be willing to buy him.
It's funny because I was the Baker guy before, and now you're the Baker guy. I would probably not give up that pick for Baker Mayfield. I'd probably be more in the 203 to 205 range, just because I do think there's merit to the fact that Baker Mayfield's job security is definitely at risk. And a year from now, if he's Mitchell Trubisky value, then it wouldn't shock me. But I do think he's undervalued to some degree, that if anybody thinks he's just done.
Yeah, no, correct. He's currently valued at about an early second round pick. So, I mean, I wouldn't probably give up a first given the market dynamic, but if you can get it for like the 201, I think that's decent value. But either way, let's get into this question because he says Baker and Waller for that first. So if I'm equating Baker to about early second round value, I probably have Waller about, we'll say mid to late first value given the down year he had and given the old nature.
Yeah, probably something like that. Again, this is probably another deal where at face value, if you make this trade, it's probably not like value-wise what you want to do, but it makes your team better in the long run. So I have no idea, again, where this first is going to be, but if you have any inkling that first could be early or could be, you know, at least even in the middle of the round, I'm probably going to make this deal because it makes your team better in the long run.
For sure. And if this is a contender, I'd like see if you can get another second attached to this, or even a third. And if that's the case,
even if it's in 2024, maybe they'll just give up their 2024 second like it's nothing.
For sure. So, I mean, overall, from the context of your team trying to strip it down, being able to get as many good young assets, which these
Herbert and Jefferson are really the only guys that you're probably not going to be moving on your team.
Correct. No, I fully agree. But either way, you're in a good position. Just tear it down, keep continuing, keep trusting the process. And look, like you'll have 2023 first if you're able to negotiate this deal. But the counter that I would indeed send would be trying for at least a second or third attached to this.
Yep, for sure.
But either way, again, we had fun with the first half of the video. But before we get into the second half of the video, as always, as Corey says, we got to pay some bills over here. You guys are going to be hearing a word from Manscaped, the official sponsor of the Fantasy Stock Exchange YouTube channel. Hey lads, today's episode is brought to you by our sponsors over at Manscaped, the leaders in male grooming across the globe. With Valentine's Day just around the corner, our sponsors at Manscaped are here with the best tools to get you ready for the special occasion. At the end of the day, the amount of roses and chocolates you bring won't matter if your manly parts are not kept up. Manscaped provides men with the cleanest and most concise trimming experience available on the market. The holidays went by so quickly. Did you shore up your grooming routine with the best tools for the job? The Performance Package 4.0 from Manscaped is just the thing every guy needs in their life to make each and every day just a little more special. The number one product in this package is the Lawnmower 4.0. This electric trimmer is designed to trim hair on loose skin, and get this, the trimmer's advanced skin-safe technology reduces cuts and nicks on your body. It even has a 4000K LED spotlight so you can shave in the dark. Also, did I mention? This thing is waterproof too, baby. You want to do it in the shower, you want to do it, after you wash up. All the power to you. This trimmer is the best on the market, the Lawnmower 4.0. Make sure your grooming experience is not without this elite trimmer. In addition to this trimmer, in addition to the Lawnmower 4.0, this package also includes the Weed Whacker nose and ear hair trimmer to whack all the worst of your weeds. The Weed Whacker is also waterproof and uses a 9,000 RPM motor-powered 360-degree rotary dual blade system. This nose and ear hair trimmer provides proprietary skin-safe technology which helps prevent against said nicks, snags, and tugs in those delicate holes of yours. Manscaped even threw in 2 free gifts: their Shed Travel Bag and anti-chafing boxer briefs to keep you comfy everywhere you go. To get this package and more, go to manscaped.com for our exclusive offer over here at the Fancy Stock Exchange of 20% off plus free shipping if you use promo code BUSH at checkout. This Valentine's Day, it's time to join 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped, the leaders in below-the-waist grooming, with our exclusive offer as I mentioned. Go to manscaped.com and use promo code BUSH for 20% off plus free shipping. Your lady will thank you for getting the best male grooming experience currently on the market. And if you didn't hear me right, 20% off, free shipping, promo code BUSH. All sums up to the best experience you can have in dealing with those delicates of yours. That's 20% off plus free shipping with promo code BUSH at checkout. Join Cupid and shoot your arrow with Manscaped this Valentine's Day. Again, we appreciate the support for the Fantasy Stock Exchange shown by our friends over at Manscaped, and thank them for sponsoring today's video. Back to the video. All right, so let's continue with the video and let's get on to Antoine's team. I'll let you take it away with Antoine.
Yeah, so Antoine has his team listed here. It's a 14-team league, half PPR, 1 quarterback league. He looks like he's got, I would say, like a contending team. Obviously, he's got Aaron Jones, Dalvin Cook, but he does have Dobbins and Gibson behind those guys. He has Keenan Allen, Mike Evans, type of win now wide receivers. And his team's in pretty good shape. So basically what Antoine wanted to know was he went and won the championship last year. So he's wondering if trading back from the 101 is the right move for him, because he said people are hesitant to trade them because he just won, which is going to happen probably if you guys win your championship. People are going to, be a little bit wary of trading with you because they don't want you to win again. And he was also curious on Aaron Jones because it's hard to sell him right now. Number one, because AJ Dillon's value is pretty, high. And number two, because we don't really know what Aaron Rodgers is going to do. So first, what are your thoughts on trading back from the 101? Is that a good strategy? Is that a bad strategy? What do you think?
I mean, it fully depends on the context of your team. Obviously, is this a super flex or a 1 quarterback league?
It is a 1 quarterback league.
It's a 1 quarterback league. So, I mean, if you're looking at the context of this team, I think this team could afford to add some youth at the wide receiver position, obviously with Allen, Evans, Williams, Galladay, all being older assets. And I mean, losing Bush's boy as your young asset on the team with Henry Ruggs, unfortunately. But yeah, I probably would hold unless the guy at 103 is willing to, give you 103 in a second to move it down from 101 to 103. Otherwise, I would just probably hold and take the best wide receiver available.
Yeah, if you are going to try and move down from the 101, I probably wouldn't go any further than the 103, just because I do think these top 3 receivers are a cut above the rest. Again, maybe somebody takes a running back ahead of you, but you probably don't want to take that risk. In that case, I would probably just either stick and pick at 101, maybe try and go down to 102 and get a second rounder in 2023 on top of it for moving down. And same goes for the 103 as well, because I don't see a huge difference between those wide receivers. You need a young wide receiver. You're going to get a young wide receiver. I think the 101 is probably a smart pick for you. But if you wanted to just fully trade out of that pick in general and trade the 101 away for DJ Moore, or trade the 101 away for Deontay Johnson, or for Jalen Waddle, or for like anybody that you can get in that relative value of like a tier 2 wide receiver that's either in their prime or still under the age of 25, I think you could probably pull something like that off as well.
For sure. And again, obviously, as you guys know, the other moves we're looking at here are those top two running back names. If you can get, like, honestly, like if somebody offered you a 2023 first straight up right now for either of those running backs, I personally would take it. But I know in a more redraft centralized type of league that a lot of you are in, you could probably even get more value than that.
Yeah, for sure. I don't disagree with that assessment at all. So let's move on to Jose Fiender's team. I'll let you take it away with him.
Yeah, for sure. So you guys can see the base of the team. Obviously, quarterback core headed by Trey Lance, Brandon Ayuk, and some other players that you guys see listed there. The main questions that he has are, number one, what should be done with the draft picks that I have this season? And as you guys can see, there are a ton of draft capital that he has here with obviously the first overall pick, eighth overall pick, and the others listed there. So looking at this and looking at the situation of the draft capital that he owns, what are you looking to do here?
Yeah, I mean, when you're in this position, the smart thing to do is not to necessarily spend all your draft capital, right? If you want to shop that first overall pick for more 2023 capital, 2024 capital, go ahead, because this is, a productive struggle that you got on your hands here. You got very, very little cornerstone pieces on this team. Anybody, like everybody and anybody that can turn into draft capital for you in the future should be sold, in my opinion. So if you have a week where one of these random, let's say Gus Edwards is like a RB1 for like 5 games because J.K. Dobbins, blows his MCL or something for a couple of games, sell him for a third rounder. Like that's the type of, proactive moves that you want to be making with a roster like this. And with the draft capital, especially if you're on the board at 8th overall and you don't like any of the pieces on the board, if somebody's willing to give you a 2023 first, if somebody's willing to give you, 2023 seconds and a young player, go ahead and do moves like that as well. You don't need to spend all of these picks. That is the one thing that people in productive struggles probably make the mistake of doing, is spending all of their draft capital, when they're on the board, not moving up or down the board, depending on what they want to do. And also the same thing applies too. If you're on the board at 8th overall and somebody's on the board at 5th overall and you see a big tier break, as we see a big tier break between the top 3 receivers, and Drake London or Garrett Wilson slides to 105, and you can give them your 20th overall pick to slide up to that pick, go ahead and make that move.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. For me on this team in particular, I don't want to say untouchable because, again, anybody can be attained if I have the right price or the right offer in place. But the two guys that I'm most likely looking to hold here would be Trey Lance and Brandon Ayuk. But I'm telling you, the rest of this team, if somebody wants to offer high, an early second round pick on Ramondre Stevenson, I'd be willing to do that. Jacoby Myers, Adam Troutman, Jimmy Garoppolo, you fucking name it. You want to pay up for them, they're yours. That's the way I'm viewing this team. Full productive struggle. And as Corey mentioned, and as I fully agree, be fluid, be functional. If somebody really, really wants that first overall pick, they think Isaiah Spiller, Breece Hall, one of these receivers is like the next coming of Jesus Christ, and they're willing to give you, a 2023 first and like 2 future seconds, make that type of move, because realistically here, you're trying to strip your team of as much production as possible this year, because at the end of the day, guess what? What's going to be the most beneficial thing for your team in the long run? It's going to be losing football games. It's going to be losing in fantasy games. And I know it sucks. You want to compete. You want to win these fantasy games. But at the end of the day here, I don't think you're going to be complaining when you have an assembly of Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Jackson Smith and Jigba, and then looking at 2024, Travion Henderson, Donovan Edwards, JJ McCarthy. There's so much opportunity to rebuild this thing from the ground up. You just got to be willing to put in the tank job to do it.
Yeah, 100%. He also asked a couple other questions that we'll just get to briefly here. Is it worth it to leverage those 2023 picks for good talent now, or to wait and really rebuild the roster with those picks? I would say as a general rule, probably not, because you want to hold on to those picks to when they're going to be the most valuable. But this 2023 class is a little bit different in the fact that it's been hyped up for so long that everybody knows that they're valuable for the most part. If you're in any kind of like moderately sharp league, people know that draft class is valuable. So if you can get very, very good talent for those picks, by all means, but I'm more probably inclined to hold them for the time being.
For sure. And it just really goes into what we were just talking about as well. So, we answer the question subconsciously without even reading it yet. But let's get into the next couple, and then we'll get into the next team. Is it worth to take a quarterback with one of my first 3 rounders this year? Or should I build the wide receivers, running backs first? I'm just taking the value that falls. I don't care about positional need. I don't care about anything else. If one of the stud receivers falls to you that you have a tier above any other quarterback, you take him. Or, hey, maybe Malik Willis gets top 10 draft capital. You really value him. You think that he could be a really good asset. Take him first overall. At the end of the day, that's totally up to your own tutelage. It's totally up to what you view the prospects as personally.
Yep. And the last question he has here is, where would you take Trey McBride or any of the top tight ends in the rookie draft?
Second
I mean,
round.
it's all going to depend on where they get drafted. If they go in the mid-second round,
Yeah.
which I think is possible, I'm not really sure if that's where they're going to go. But if either Weidermeyer or Trey McBride go in the mid-second round, I think McBride showed enough, production in college that I think he's worthy of like a mid-second round pick if he goes in the early second round or the mid-second round of the actual NFL draft.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that assessment. It's probably like, again, if you get similar draft capital to what Pat Fryermuth received, I can see their rookie year ADP value kind of being similar. I think Fryermuth ended up as a mid to late second last year. I can see McBride kind of falling into that range.
Yep, definitely makes some sense to me. Let's move on to Detroit fans team. He has the Big Ten Dynasty League, so I'm guessing. I mean, he's a Detroit fan. I'm guessing he lives in Michigan or something. But 10 team, full PPR, super flex. There's the roster right there. You guys can see he's got a nice 3 stack of quarterbacks, young quarterbacks there. Antonio Gibson, not a whole lot else at running back. Wide receivers, he's got 4 of the top 15 dudes with Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, DJ Moore, and Elijah Moore. He has stud tight end and Pat Fryermuth, the young tight end as well. He also has the 104 this year and some other draft capital, all of his picks in the next 2 drafts as well. Basically, he said he just drafted this team in a 10-man dynasty startup. What is the team's outlook, strong and weak spots, and who should he target at 104? Now, pretty obvious that the strong part of your team is your wide receiver core. I also do think at not the onesie positions because it's a super flex league, but the quarterback and tight end position you're pretty solid at as well. Really at 104, it's just kind of like a best player available. I'm also looking to shop that pick because likely the best player available is going to be a wide receiver. So if you can, see what you can get for that 104, maybe you want to add a young running back like J.K. Dobbins or something. I'm definitely looking to do something like that. But, if you had to stick and pick Malik Willis or, Isaiah Spiller or, Drake London, Garrett Wilson or, Treylon Burks, I also think that's fine as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is a phenomenally put together team from a structural basis. You went fragile running back, which is what we preach. Again, you want to invest into stable, insulated assets, and quite frankly, running backs don't present that. But the running back you got is one that is as insulated as possible with Gibson. You don't have a Cook, a Chubb, or someone older like that doesn't have a long shelf life. The quarterback core, obviously, these are guys that they're FSC staples. We talk about Trey Lance and Zach Wilson like nobody's business, and we both do think that Tua is a good value in drafts right now. And then I don't even have to talk about that wide receiver core. You did phenomenal there, and the tight end we like Fryermuth. But either way, let's get into the questions and let's get into what exactly he has printed out here in terms of his draft capital. You mentioned outlook, strong point, weak points. Clearly, your wide receivers are your strong point. Clearly, your running backs are your weak point. But that's how we like to build.
Yeah, exactly. This is the way you want to build it in the startup because, I mean, really the cheapest thing that you're going to get stud running backs is in the rookie drafts anyway, right? So if you can get a stud rookie running back in 2023 or even this year, if you really like Isaiah Spiller or Breece Hall at 104, then that's the best time to add your running backs. You don't want to add your running backs in the startups if you can help it. You'd rather build up your more insulated pieces like quarterback and wide receiver and tight end at that point in the draft. So he also says in the startup draft, I traded up in the 3rd round to jump someone to get Lance. So in the 3rd round, getting Lance by the start, like just at the basis of that question was a smart move because I don't think he should be going in the 3rd round. I think he's probably a top 15, top 20 type of player in Dynasty right now. And he basically said, I gave up the 305 in the startup. He also gave up the 403 as a rookie pick. And he received the 305, gave up the 307, and he gave up his 207 in exchange for the 403 in the rookie draft. I think that is a phenomenal move. The 207, again, what player are you looking at there? Like Justin Ross, maybe, like who's, a fine, dart throw type of prospect, but the 403 and the 207, like there's not a huge difference to me as the difference between Trey Lance and, the next tier down of quarterbacks, which was probably like Russell Wilson, Matthew Stafford types.
Yeah, and again, if you were to look at just the trade, this is why always contextualizing players to draft picks is the play. Because if you just look at the trade, you'd be like, what? You move up 2 spots and you move down, what is that, like 16 or whatever, how many rookie spots? Like, oh my God, I can't believe you gave up that much. But when you contextualize it and you realize that Trey Lance is on the freaking board, you make this move. And again, you mentioned maybe that's Russell Wilson at the 307. Maybe that's a different position, running back, receiver, whatever, at the 307. None of those assets, I can almost guarantee you, are going to be as valuable as what you ended up getting with Trey Lance. Because again, myself and Corey both view Trey Lance as a fringe top 15 level superflex asset. So the fact that you were able to get him in the third round to begin with is phenomenal. So overall, yeah, maybe it looks bad on the surface if you don't attribute names, but when you attribute the name Trey Lance, this is a steal of a deal.
Yep, for sure. And I think that's good on Detroit fans' team. We'll talk
Yep.
about the last team that we're going to talk about here. If anybody else's team was submitted to us this week and we didn't get to it because we do have some extras, we will cover it in our next Dynasty Decisions episode. Fempstead's team, the last team that we're going to cover here, one quarterback, half PPR league. He has, Dak, Saquon, Tua, Najee Harris, Michael Carter, Deebo Samuel, Chris Godwin, Michael Thomas, George Kittle, Pat Fryermuth. Also has some pretty good draft capital to go along with that in the 102, the 108. 202, also has two 2023 firsts and two 2023 seconds as well. Basically, he says, is this team alone a contender if he just adds Burks or Hall or whatever, rookie prospect he likes at 102, or should he be adding a vet RB1 2 type like Jacobs or Eckler to take this team over the top and compete this year? Also, what would you guys be looking to do as potential immediate contributors with my 108 and 202? So basically, what should he do with his rookie draft capital is his questions.
Yeah, so first off the bat, is this team a contender? I think it's absolutely a contender. I mean, you look at the quarterback in a one quarterback league, you have a top 10 guy. Look at your running backs. Realistically here, we both think that Saquon and Najee could be RB1 archetypes this year. And although we're lower consensusly on, or from a consensus standpoint on Carter and Ramondre, I mean, they're fine filler pieces for depth. Wide receivers, Deebo, Godwin, MT are clear locked and loaded wide receiver ones when they play. And then you mentioned in terms of depth, Judy has upside, Claypool has upside. Maybe you want to add another guy there. Obviously, you have the 102 and the 108 to be able to do so. Tight end, Kittle, Fryermuth, no questions asked there. That is a phenomenal group of tight ends. So overall, yes, I do think you are a contender. And I would just spend that rookie draft either adding the best players available that falls to you, or you know what, maybe at 108, somebody's willing to make a deal with you and give you, a contending level wide receiver to shore up that core. That would be the type of move I would look to.
Yeah, and I think the standout player to me at 108, if they're on the board, is Kenneth Walker because he's a running back. I think that some people might be willing to overpay for him. I don't know if he's going to make it to that point because it's a one quarterback draft, not a super flex draft. But if Kenneth Walker's on the board at 108, do not take Kenneth Walker because I don't think he's worth that pick. And I'm not high on him. I don't think he's going to be a great long-term fantasy asset. So if somebody is willing to overpay for Kenneth Walker and give you another 2023 first, or they're willing to give you, Josh Jacobs or, somebody like that, or Austin Eckler, or even like Joe Mixon, I would rather have than Kenneth Walker. I'd be willing to make that move in, pursuit of the championship this season. If it were the ideal draft for me, if it was me doing this draft, and I don't know who's going to be there on the board and all that stuff, but if I were to spend all these draft picks, I'd want, one of Drake London or Treylon Burks at 102. I'd want probably at 108 looking towards like
a vet.
Yeah, I'd probably be looking to shop that for a veteran. But if all else fails and you got to take Jameson Williams or something like that, I don't think that's a terrible move either. Chris Olave in a great landing spot or something. And then at 202, Tyler Algier is a guy that I'm very high on. I think that's the perfect type of pick to add to your running back core. If you don't want to trade for a running back and you wanted to go into the season with Saquon, Najee Harris, Carter, Ramondre, and Algier, let's say he goes to like the third round to like the Falcons or something like that, I think that would probably be a good pick as well. So that's probably where I'm looking towards my rookie draft capital. 102, I'd probably spend that pick. 108, I'm probably looking to shop it because in a one quarterback draft, you're going to see a bit of a drop off after that 106 spot.
Yep. No, I fully agree with you here. But overall, are you a contender? I absolutely do think you are. And in terms of, Jacobs or an Eckler type, honestly, just depends on the valuation.
Like, because you have two 2023 firsts as well, right? So if you can get through this season with, your top two running backs and three, I would say you need one more really good, depth piece. And I think a guy like Algier would make a lot of sense for that. Then you should be okay. And then in 2023, you can add a much better running back and a much better running back class to your team.
Yep. No, I absolutely agree here. But again, we're about 47 minutes in the video. If you guys have made it this far and have enjoyed this episode of Dynasty Decisions, make sure to leave a like down below. Again, we put these out because we know you guys enjoy them. We enjoy making them, and we're happy to keep putting them out because ultimately we're getting a really good amount of feedback on it. So appreciate you guys as always. On the 10K, as I always say, about 9.1 right now. So if you guys are watching this and aren't already subscribed, help the cause, baby. What does it hurt? Hit that button, see what happens. And hey, if you don't like us, you can always unsubscribe later.
Yeah, and we are going to be coming at you guys with, our first set of rookie mock drafts soon. We'll also be coming at you guys as soon as possible after the combine's over. We'll, cover the combine, everything that happened there. But then we're going to be getting into positional rankings too. So you guys know, once you're on the clock in rookie drafts, who we would draft. All that stuff will be coming at you. And again, if you want access to our Dynasty rankings and all that good stuff as well, you can become a Patreon, and you'll also get, priority access to Dynasty Decisions episodes as well. So without further ado, guys, peace out. Talk to you soon.